Hello, everybody. We are coming to you during St. Patrick's Week. And because of that, I bid you a hearty diolch, which is hello, literally God to you in Irish. I'm your host, Trish Muyco-Tobin. Welcome to the SIP series on the Stir podcast, brought to you by Gazelle Media. And right alongside with me here is my guest co-host, author, entertainment columnist, and movie maven, Debbie Baldwin. Hello, Debbie.
Hi, Trish. Thanks for having me.
This is going to be
Bigora.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun list. We already know about the wealth of films that are either about Ireland or are set in Ireland, or maybe just even feature an unforgettable lead who happens to be Irish. This is the week to talk about those films, Debbie.
Yes, and if we started peeling the onion on Irish actors, we would be here all week because obviously Ireland has given us some incredible talent. So we're kind of sticking to, with one sort of notable exception, Irish themed films.
Yes. And, seriously, I love this list because it gives us a sampling across genres. So whatever kind of mood you're in, as long as you're in a St. Patty's Day kind of mood, this is your list this week. So with that, we turn to the first movie on our list. I noticed that we really had a glut of Irish-based films in the late 80s into the 90s for some reason. And we're going to start in 1989 with a movie that was a biopic of Christy Brown, the Irish writer and artist who was born with severe cerebral palsy. And that is the movie called My Left Foot.
And this movie, I remember seeing this movie in the theater and kind of dreading going. You're thinking, oh, this biopic about this wheelchair-bound guy in Ireland. He's one of 15 kids. It's just going to be this hideous sort of Angela's Ashes kind of
thing. Heavy.
Right.
Yes.
And man, was I wrong. I have to say this movie is so inspiring. It really is one of those classic feel-good films. Daniel Day-Lewis won the Academy Award for portraying the role of Christy Brown, the character with cerebral palsy. And Brenda Fricker, who plays his mother, also won an Oscar for her performance.
For Best Supporting Actress, yes.
The director, whose name comes up again on this list.
What a great way to have your directing debut with a film like this.
This movie, it's just a very simple story, and the sort of strife and pain that this character feels because of his physical limitations, and then the triumphs of overcoming them are just classic, movie fodder. And this is so well done and so, stand up and cheer. It's really, really a great film. Daniel Day-Lewis can do no wrong. But This is really, I think, a feather in his cap, this performance.
And I think he had a lot to do with making this film, palatable, for lack of a better term, because I was like you. I believe I was dragged by a college friend into the theater to watch this. This is the type of movie, like you said, at face value, you don't know if you want to see it or not, but I'm glad I did. And, Daniel Day-Lewis apparently stayed in character, remaining in that wheelchair in between takes, Debbie, so much so that he apparently broke a couple ribs just for all that time in that hunched over position on the chair for weeks during filming.
Method acting. I don't know.
Gosh, yeah, no kidding. That is method acting for you. And so yeah, definitely worth your while. Yeah. And so our next film is a little different, and it spans genres. We're talking, it's a musical, it's a comedy, it's a drama set in the north side of Dublin, based on the Roddy Doyle novel of the same name. And that is the film, The Commitments.
And we've discussed this film before.
Yes, we have.
And one of the things I find very interesting about this film right off the bat is that it's directed by Alan Parker, who is a double Oscar winner for his direction of Midnight Express and Mississippi Burning. So you have this like heavy, serious, brilliant directorial mind behind this project of this very sort of simple story of these kind of Dublin reprobates. The one guy wants to start a band kind of based on that bluesy American,
soul music, yes.
soul, Aretha Franklin style, and puts together this hodgepodge of musicians who are mercurial and temperamental, and for a bunch of nobodies, they all have the attitudes of like these huge rock stars. And you know from the get-go that this thing is going to implode at some point because everybody's got a temper and everyone has an opinion. But the music is fantastic. The story is really charming and interesting. And it's just a great all-around movie.
Oh, very entertaining. And like you said, the likes of Aretha Franklin, we're talking that kind of music, Otis Redding, Al Green. Check out the soundtrack if you haven't already. But I think the reason why this film really gelled together was that the cast, the cast that made up the band in the movie, they were musicians first. I mean, they tried out. They had to show first that they had musical talent before they were even given lines to read. So I think it made it a lot believable in terms of just playing music on the screen.
It's really a very musical film with an incredible soundtrack. So if you really want to be tapping your foot while you're watching, keeping an eye out for your corned beef in the slow.
Exactly. Good idea. Okay, so I found this as a prize, Deb, that there was a sequel proposed for The Commitments, and it would have taken place stateside. Apparently, the idea was to have the band reunite in New York City, but it never happened. It's still an idea. It might be a little interesting, who knows, but I was surprised to find that out. So yeah. And this movie will also kind of remind you of another musical dramedy down further on our list. We will talk about it in a little bit, but in terms of similarities between the two films, both have achieved cult status and really regarded some of the best Irish movies ever made, not just in this genre, not just in the musical category. All right, this next film, Debbie, my gosh, if you look up plot twist in the dictionary, you will probably find the movie poster for this film.
To the point where people cannot remember the plot of this film because all they think about is the twist.
But they remember that.
Yes, everyone remembers the twist in The Crying Game.
Yes. So we refresh them about that plot.
Okay, so The Crying Game is the 1992 film starring Stephen Ray and Forrest Whitaker and Jay Davidson. And it's a story about an IRA soldier who abducts a British soldier and is ordered, they're ransoming him to release some captive IRA prisoners. And with the threat that they're going to kill this British soldier if these IRA men are not released within 3 days. In the 3 days that Forrest Whitaker, the soldier, and Stephen Ray, the IRA guarding him, kind of bond. And in this bonding moment, Forrest Whitaker tells Stephen Ray that he has to go find, if something happens to him, Stephen Ray has to go find his girlfriend, Dill. And so lo and behold, when the 72 hours are up and Stephen Ray is supposed to kill the British soldier, whose name is Jody, he can't do it. But while he's chasing him through the woods, Jody ends up getting hit by a car and killed, or hit by a transport, a military transport.
Like a convoy of some sort. Yeah.
So Stephen Ray goes to Dublin, I think it is, to find Dill, who is this striking woman working as a hairdresser.
Beautiful, yes.
And the big twist, which if you don't know it at this point, you need to come out from the rock and like live a life.
I think so.
Dill is trans. So when Stephen Ray gets her to the apartment for the big love scene, he is surprised to discover the physical makeup of Dill's body.
Okay, do you remember hearing the theater audience gasping? Because I sure do.
Lots of different responses from the theater audience, definitely. Especially, this movie is 30 years old, 29 years old. So,
Oh my goodness.
even
Wow, I didn't even
back
realize that.
then, uh, and especially because the actor Jay Davidson, wow, she, he made a beautiful woman in the character of Dill. And it's an incredible big plot twist and Stephen Ray, but the character, how that evolves from there, the whole audience is so like taken aback and shocked that you can't really follow through the rest of the plot, which is
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, I was in shock.
there's Stephen Ray has been called on to assassinate a judge. If you ask people what happens after that big reveal in the Crying Game, I bet you 90% of the people can't tell you how the rest of the story played out.
All right, so let me ask you this. Knowing how much you know about movies, this film was highly acclaimed, won Best Film at the BAFTAs, which is the British equivalent of the Academy Awards, designated one of the top 30 greatest British films of all time, also nominated at the Oscars with some major awards. Do you think that this film would have been as acclaimed as it was without that plot twist?
No question. That plot twist garnered a ton of attention for this film. I mean, it's an interesting film without the twist. The really interesting part of this film for me is the love story, because Stephen Ray, after his initial shock, continues to court Dill. The character, Stephen Ray's character, is in love with her.
Yes.
And that hurdle, overcoming that relationship hurdle, which the character, Stephen Ray's character, does to some extent, is fascinating to watch. The IRA stuff and killing the judge, and he doesn't kill the judge, and the guy, everyone's blaming everybody, and there's a lot of, suspense and with a play out of the other part of the plot. But I mean, come on, this movie wouldn't have gotten anywhere near the kind of attention it got without that big moment, which is, I think, so groundbreaking for the LGBTQ plus community.
For the times,
Time, my God. I mean, and Stephen Ray's character, when he first responds, he vomits. Like, it's a real reaction. It's an honest response. And then we watch his character come to terms with.
And I really, truly think that his character's journey, in terms, like you said, overcoming and accepting and really realizing how much he cared for Dill, helped along with the audience's overcoming that shock as well. I mean, he took us on that journey, which, I think, one of the other things that we remember about this film, and that's why it was such a turning point, I think, in movie making. Just for you guys who are curious, so this film had a running time of 1 hour and 52 minutes. That plot twist is revealed at about 1 hour and 3 minutes into the film. So it took a while. And by that time, you're already so emotionally invested in the story that you can't help but, cross that threshold and go along with him. So, that is The Crying Game. All right, so we mentioned Jim Sheridan earlier. The next film is the second one of his films written and directed by him. He debuted his directorial debut in My Left Foot. The next film, I guess that combination of Jim Sheridan and Daniel Day-Lewis really worked really, really well, because here they are back 1993 with In the Name of the Father.
And, this is another powerful film. This is a hideous story. If you know the true story of the Guildford Four, it's about, I might be mispronouncing it. Of these Irish names, I'm just kind of chuckling to myself, because I was thinking, well, it's understandable I'd have trouble pronouncing foreign language names, like from non-English speaking countries. But from like Saoirse Ronan to
Saoirse,
all these different places, it's it's proven quite a challenge. But anyway, the true story of these four men who were accused of a pub bombing that the IRA executed in the I think it was in the mid 80s. But anyway, Daniel Day-Lewis plays a character who is kind of a fuck up, and he goes to Dublin and he ends up, and there's a lot of things that lead to him being set up to being accused of this pub bombing, which he is not guilty of. And his father also gets involved too. His father's more of a political activist, and it's just the story as it plays out of the Daniel Day-Lewis characters in jail. He meets the actual bomber while in prison, and it's really more of a legal drama, than one of the many IRA kind of thrillers that we have on the list.
Right.
This is more a story of these men, innocent men, fighting for their freedom. A lot of outrage as you're watching it, because so much of their incarceration is due to the fact that the police and the investigative bodies don't want to be embarrassed. Like, they know that these guys are innocent. So it's a little hard to watch, but man, again, Daniel Day-Lewis and Jim Sheridan, what a combination, director and lead actor.
The story was really compelling. It was based on that autobiography, Proved Innocent, the Jerry Conlon. And did you know, Deb, that Gabriel Byrne, the actor, actually had purchased the rights to Jerry Conlon's autobiography and had intended to play Conlon himself, but the role eventually went to Daniel Day-Lewis, with Byrne assuming executive producing duties, but it was initially slated role for Gabriel Byrne. Daniel Day, again, the method actor, lost more than 50 pounds for this role.
And it's startling to see him in the
Oh
role.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Spent a few nights and days in a jail cell, and reportedly also had crew members verbally abuse him and throw cold water at him, all odd hours of the day, just to really feel what it's like, in an effort, according to him, in an effort to understand why an innocent man like Jerry Conlon would sign a confession and destroy his life. So
Yeah.
that was what he went through. My God, Daniel Day.
Yeah.
For the sake of art.
He needs to take a role where he's like some fat cat, like mob guy in a big penthouse suite in Vegas, and then he can live really large for a couple of months while he's filming.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, that'll be something, and I'm sure he'll be great with that too. All right, so we're gonna move on to 1996. And upon this film's release in 1996, this film became the highest grossing film in Ireland. But 4 years later, Titanic came, and shattered, of course, all box office records. But up until then, this film, 1996's Michael Collins, was a huge deal. And it is about the Irish revolutionary leader and politician Michael Collins, with Liam Neeson in the title role.
Liam Neeson in the title role, although once again, Gabriel Byrne's name pops up because he was actually considered for this role as well. Michael Collins is the story of the IRA leader, who in the sort of, let's see, it would be in the early 20th century, the early 1900s.
Yes.
Ireland is first fighting for its independence and then reaches a compromise which divides Ireland into Northern Ireland. And Michael Collins is instrumental in all of this. He goes from basically a rebel, or what the British would consider a terrorist, to a politician who's trying to diplomatically negotiate the situation, until he's assassinated in 1922. And that is not a spoiler because the movie starts with his funeral.
Exactly.
The problem with this film, it's an incredible story for people who are outsiders, who don't understand Ireland's War of Independence in any sort of intimate way. it's very, very interesting to see, you know, people bandy about these names: terrorist, freedom fighter, rebel, soldier, to see how all these pieces move across the board and shift as they're recognized in by different terms, you know, by these various forces at play and these alliances that break down and reform. It's a super, super interesting movie. But I do think that where this film falls short is on casting. There are several roles in the film that I thought could have been, in my opinion, were miscast. And Liam Neeson possibly miscast as well.
You think
I
so?
love him. I loved seeing him. Not sure this role is the perfect role for him. Not that Gabriel Byrne would have been right either. I don't know. But something about this movie is off, and it's an intangible. I can't put my finger on it, but when I watch it, I really like it intellectually, but it doesn't hit me. And I think it's because of the cast. But
that's interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so we will leave it at that. Our next film, Debbie, one of my favorites on this list, and it comes to us from 1998, and it is the film Waking Ned Divine.
If you have not seen Waking Ned Divine, you absolutely should see it over this
Top of your list after the show is over.
I am telling you, it is, it's sort of Weekend at Bernie's Irish style. Not really, but it's the story of this tiny Irish town, which I won't spell it, but it's pronounced Tullymore.
Tullymore.
And these two buddies, when they hear word that the winner of the Irish National Lottery is someone from this tiny town
of 52 people,
they start investigating to figure out who won the lottery. And when they knock on good old Ned Divine's door, they find him dead as a doornail, holding the winning ticket in his easy chair, staring at the TV, and he's died of shock. So now the town, at the urging of these two friends, has to sort of band together and convince the lottery that Ned Divine is still alive and that he's going to win this £7 million, and that they're going to all split the winnings.
It's what Ned would have wanted. Now, imagine a premise like that. How can you go wrong with a premise like that? And I understand that this film, Debbie, was originally conceived as a 10-minute short film. But my gosh, lucky for us, they developed it into a movie. And, but it was such a success. It's a sleeper success. The budget was $3 million. It earned at least $50 million. So you can tell how this really just caught fire.
This movie is outstanding. It is laugh out loud. There's the bad guy, there's the good guy, there's it's the whole little town. It reminds me of, we've talked about a couple of these really wonderful little films that involve these tiny towns and it's just a great example of low budget independent filmmaking at its best.
The thing with this movie is that it can still happen. There are so many little towns like these around the world where you are your own little bubble and you know everybody, and there's only 50 people in the town, and you make it your business to know everyone else's business. So I could see how something like this can really take over.
Oh, completely.
Oh my goodness, it is hilarious. Oh, I highly suggest you move that to the top of your list. And just a tip, it is streaming on Hulu right now. So those of you with Hulu subscriptions, consider yourself really lucky and go see Waking Ned Divine. All right, our next film comes to us from 2007. And I have to say, this film had me, Debbie, laughing and crying in equal parts during the film. And that is the film P.S. I Love You.
Now, I included this movie on the list right away. It gets a very bad rap. I don't know why the movie was so poorly reviewed. A lot of critics felt that Hilary Swank was not correctly cast as the main character in the role, and there may be some merit to that, but I mean, I love Rachel McAdams and Amy Adams and all those, wonderful rom-com girls, but this movie is not a typical romantic comedy by any stretch. It's really not a romantic comedy at all. I don't know what I would call it, a romance maybe.
A dramedy? As I
Romance.
said, it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, but the really poignant moments in the movie that'll bring out both emotions to the extreme, I think.
The premise of the movie is that Hilary Swank is a young, newlywed, happily married, insanely in love with her husband, who's played by Gerard Butler, who dies of a brain tumor. In her grief and her dead husband anticipating her grief, he sends a series of letters to her to try and get her back on track emotionally. He sends her back on these little adventures, and he sends her to his homeland of Ireland to take life by the balls and start over again. So, and in the course of this, she brings her two friends along who are played by Lisa Kudrow and Gina Gershon, and encounters all kinds of interesting, wonderful characters, including a singer played by, there's Harry Connick Jr.'s in the film, and
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
And the movie's not about the Hilary Swank character, whose name is Holly, finding love again. It's about her opening the door to the possibility of finding love again. I think it's more about.
I really liked.
Yeah.
It was different. It seemed very formulaic at face value, but it wasn't. And that's what I liked about it.
I agree. I thought that this was a wonderful, wonderful film. It's magical. It's not canned or cheesy. There's really no formula to it. And, sometimes that jars viewers. Like, people like formula. I like formula. I like knowing there's going to be a kiss at the end, and,
Right.
And this movie isn't like that, but that's okay. It's still a great movie, and Hilary Swank is a great actress.
This was based on a novel by Cecilia Ahern, and the novel, the way that it's mainly different from the movie is that the novel takes place in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
The movie was made to alternate between New York City and Ireland. And so that's why you get that Hilary Swank casting, I think, which I think makes it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. That scenery when they're
and the soundtrack is amazing.
Yes. Yes. So I too would highly recommend this movie, just because, especially if you believe that you have your soulmate, and just the idea of that person being gone from your life and where do you go from there. I really think this will bring out a lot of that for you. So yeah, I highly recommend P.S. I Love You. Okay, our next movie, also from that same year, another quote unquote love story, but different too. I mean, talk about not being formula at all. This, we're coming from a movie about make-believe movie musicians, because Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Gerard Butler's characters were in a band together. Now we're going to a movie about real life ones who also happen to be in a movie, and that is the movie Once.
And once again, wow, this is as far from formula as you can get.
Oh my gosh.
A romance that's a moment in time. And we've talked about this film before. Glenn Hansard, the man who plays the character Guy, the characters have no names. They're Guy and Girl.
Yeah.
Is also in the film The Commitments. So there's our little link between these two movies. And he's a busker on the streets in Dublin, and he meets this Czech girl, and she brings him to her apartment to repair her vacuum cleaner, right? And she is also a musician, and it's there. She's married. Her husband's in Czechoslovakia, or the Czech Republic. Get with it, Deb.
Yes, the Czech Republic.
And he's coming there to be with her. The Glenn Hansard's guy character has an ex-girlfriend who lives in London, and she wants him to move there to be with her. It's just this moment, this little window where these two very talented musicians make some beautiful music and have this unconsummated romance that is so heartwarming and heart-wrenching, and
you feel it. You feel it.
You really, really hope, but you sort of know as the film evolves that it's not meant to be for these two. So it's just,
you wanted it to be, you were rooting for both, but you're right. I mean, you kind of come to accept that the more you get into this movie. Of course, life often imitates art. Hansard and Glenn Hansard and Markita Glova, who played the girl, became a couple while working on this film.
And bear in mind, there is a huge age difference going on there. I think Hansard was in his late 30s, and she was
she was like 17.
Yeah.
Yes. And so yeah, they were together for some time. But you could just really sense that magnetism through the film.
Yeah, and I did read the interview with Hansard where he says it was inevitable. Like our connection was so intense during the film, and every audience member sees it.
My gosh,
it's palpable.
I found it interesting. So, we bring up Markita's age. She was 17. In fact, she had to get permission to get out of school to get this movie made. Initially, Debbie, the actor Cillian Murphy was attached to play the lead role for once. Believe it or not, it wasn't just an actor playing a musician. Cillian is actually a bona fide rock singer, a rock performer. He was in a band and was about to sign a record contract when he decided he was going to do acting instead. I think his reservation came in the fact that, they were going to cast this 17-year-old inexperienced girl to be in the movie, to play opposite him. So he was a little concerned about that. And so when he pulled out of the project, so that a lot of that funding, we had talked prior that this film was probably one of the lowest budget films ever made. Like, cast and crew would shoot during the daytime so they could make use of natural light, so they didn't have to pay for lighting. And then there was a key scene in the movie where the band gets together and there's a little party in someone's home. One of the co-stars actually made that food instead of hiring a caterer. So it was really low budget from the
shot in 17 days, and the director used a long lens to shoot the street scenes. And he joked that most of the people in the shots didn't even realize that they were pedestrians walking by, had no idea.
Yeah, and kudos to John Carney, who wrote and directed this film. Apparently, it took him about 5 minutes to get the outline of this film down, and he did it while sitting in a cafe in Dublin while he was missing his girlfriend, who took an acting gig in London. So, plot kind of inspired by the film, but my gosh, what great success this film has come to have.
Beautiful. I mean, it's just a once in a lifetime experience and
Yes, exactly. Okay. So, and also, it's important to note, just 4 years after this film premiered, the Broadway musical opened. And just like the film, in addition to the leads, it's really the music of this movie and the Broadway musical that shine and connects with the audience. So, that is the movie Once. Okay, 2009. I must say, this is probably the film I'm most unfamiliar with, but I'm definitely, call me intrigued. It is described as a romantic fairy tale, and that is the movie Undine.
This is a movie. I don't know how it flew under everyone's radar.
Yeah.
It's such a good movie. It's romantic and funny and beautiful and feel good and well acted. It's splash, but with a much more complex, gritty plot, layered and
Right.
meaty. And it stars Colin Farrell as a fisherman. He has a wheelchair-bound daughter named Annie and an ex-wife. And the movie starts right off with a bang. He pulls up his fishing net out at sea one day, and in the fishing net is a woman. And the woman is Undine. And um, the daughter immediately starts to suspect that she is a selkie, which is a sort of a version of a mermaid. And the daughter starts researching all the folklore. And now there's a realistic explanation for why Undine is in the water too, as well as this fairy tale explanation that the daughter believes. And as the story goes, someone's looking for Undine in the village, and the villain, and Colin Farrell's character is protecting her. I don't even want to give you too much detail about the plot of this film because
I haven't seen it, so don't. But the plot, yeah, it seems very, very fascinating. And anything with selkies or mermaid types, sign me up, because
it's a fantasy, but it has such a believable grit to it. But every minute of this film is enjoyable. It's just great acting. It's a really compelling story. You got this kind of edge of your seat, like, oh, please let this work out the way I want it to work out.
Right, yeah.
So it's 2 thumbs up all across the board.
And it's important to note that this film, written and directed by Neil Jordan, who brought us also The Crying Game from earlier up the list.
Which is also a romantic movie. So maybe he's got, he understands the sort of complexities of
different types of love. While the plot I just thought was juicy enough, Debbie, my goodness, here's a real story about 2 co-stars falling in love. Colin Farrell and Elijah Balcleda, who is the actress who plays Undine, became real life partners during filming of this movie. They in fact have a son together, Henry, who was born right around the time the movie was released in 2009.
Oh, don't tell me they're not together anymore, because I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, we're not going to tell you, Debbie. But the good news about Undine is that it is streaming free right now on Crackle. So go see it. I'm going to. It's on my list.
Streaming platform if you're interested in downloading yet another platform.
I know, my gosh.
I think I have 4, and that's too many.
Yeah, I think I have about the same. And you're right. I mean, it's so easy to go crazy with these things, but you know what? It's great to have all these resources on hand.
It is great. Yeah. But Undine is definitely what goes way at the top of your list for Irish movies or for any movie.
All right, Undine. Okay, next we have a film called Leap Year from 2010. Amy Adams, Matthew Good. I haven't seen this movie, but again, I am intrigued, Deb.
Well, and I will say this movie was not well reviewed. It was criticized for being a little vapid. It was criticized for being a sort of a romantic comedy cliche. I would say this about it. I would watch Amy Adams in almost anything she does. She's fantastic. And she really, her roles don't do her justice, because she has so much depth of character that when she is cast in these kind of a little more flighty movies, she doesn't really get a chance to show it off. In this film, I think she does get a chance to show it off a bit. She plays a woman who's in a long-term relationship with a man who's played by Adam Scott, who, if you remember him from Step Brothers and every movie, he's always the asshole. So you know,
Step brother,
right
yes.
that they've set up the cliche because you know he's so easy to hate.
You know, you don't want her to end up with him,
Right.
definitely.
And, you know, he's the commitment phobe boyfriend who goes to Ireland for a medical conference. And she gets this idea in her head that Leap Day, February 29th, is a day in Ireland also called Bachelor Day, where women can propose to the men. So she is going to jump on a flight, go to Ireland and propose to this guy. And lo and behold, the plane gets blown off course and she ends up in this tiny village where this pub owner, who's played by Matthew Good, another, wow, great actor. You can't not love him. So right off the bat, they set the casting up for the perfect, you know, formula right there. The charming the Irish reviewers all criticized Good's accent. I'm a kind of a bitch about accents too, but it didn't really bother me. Maybe it's because he's British. I don't know, but it's their road trip story. She's going to pay him. He needs the money to save his pub. She's going to pay him to get her to Dublin so she can propose to Aaron's boyfriend. And of course, during their road trip, the two of them fall in love. It is a very formulaic romantic comedy, but that's what romantic comedies are. So
and sometimes you're just in the mood for it, really.
And that's all I really ask is charming, talented, attractive leads, a good you know, thwarter of the plot, a good villain or a good, you know, obstacle to their happiness, and some good chemistry. And that is all there in this movie. It's not an A plus 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 film for me. It's not Waking Ned Divine or Ondine, but if it's on, I would absolutely watch it. It's a charming romantic comedy.
And you're right about Amy Adams. I mean, I can watch her in anything. She has such range, and she's done a good job with everything I've seen with her in it. So yeah, definitely a reason to watch. Okay, our final film on the list. I mean, talk about, it's been described as an American epic in terms of its ensemble cast, epic in terms of its scope, epic in terms of the special effects. This is that film that got us talking about de-aging technology that was used. Most definitely epic in length. The running time, 209 minutes. That means it's 3 hours, 29 minutes. And that is the movie from 2019 called The Irishman.
And it for sure is the least Irish of our Irish movies. You know, In the Name of the Father had 7 Academy Award nominations and no wins. And I thought, wow, that's a real, you know, that's a tough party to leave empty-handed with 7 nominations. The Irishman had 10 nominations and no wins at the 2019 Academy Awards. This was Martin Scorsese's kind of, I mean, really not swan song, but bookend or the final entry in his anthology of mafia films.
I think so, yes. Go big or go home, right?
Gathered all of his lambs from his previous films. Robert De Niro plays Frank Sheeran. And while this movie is long, and I've had many people tell me that they were a little bored, I was never bored for even 1 minute.
I was glued to the screen.
Every minute. I loved it. De Niro plays Frank Sheeran, who's the man who, in his memoir, claims to have killed Jimmy Hoffa, the big Teamsters union leader during the era of Robert Kennedy and John F. Kennedy and the struggle between the Attorney General's office and the mob and the unions. And Scorsese brings in his A-list cast, including Joe Pesci, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro. It's a riveting film, in my opinion. And Pesci, in particular, who, I don't know why Pesci's such a diva. You know, we talked about how he was a diva in Home Alone. And, you know, how he wanted to like not start shooting until 9:30 so he could play golf before the shooting started. And in this movie, apparently Scorsese offered him this role 50 times before.
50 times, and that's a low estimate according to the director, Deb. Yes, he was reportedly the holdout for this movie.
Which is annoying to me because you've got these legends. I mean, Pesci's not a legend in my mind. You've got.
Well, for his part, he said he didn't want to do the gangster thing again.
Yeah, it's a paycheck. Like, who are you?
And apparently it was De Niro who played a big role in convincing him. You know, those two have history together. Pretty much telling Joe Pesci, you know, we got to do this. Who knows if there'll be anything after. And again, you know, that history, we're talking, this was their 7th film together between De Niro and Pesci. They've also worked with Scorsese on Goodfellas, Casino, among other films.
Well, and what's interesting to me about this role, which I would think that Pesci would jump at this opportunity, is because in many ways, his character is sort of the antithesis of his character in Goodfellas. You know, that famous scene in Goodfellas when Joe Pesci's in the bar and he's like, what do I make you laugh? Like you think like Joe Pesci's going to kill him. You don't know if he's joking or if he's serious. He's this hothead with an incredibly short temper that's gonna come back to like bite him in the ass. And now you've got this character Pesci's playing in The Irishman, who is this thoughtful, circumspect, you know, slow to anger guy who's literally, you know, taking care of the problems that were the characters that Pesci played in past movies.
Yes, exactly.
I would think that Pesci would have jumped at the chance.
And as someone who's been fan of those movies, it was really so riveting to watch him on screen, because you're right, it was the completely almost like a role reversal for a stretch there. But yeah, and it would be really interesting to see if salary played a big part in those negotiations, like what started the first question, and then at the 50th time he was asked if that salary had bumped up a bit, because apparently, you know, this is Scorsese's most expensive film to date. I think certain estimates put it up to about 250 million to make. It ranges from 159 to 250 million. And with some insiders saying if they're not giving you an exact figure, that means it's probably higher than that.
I mean, so, you know, we're looking at a movie like Once that maybe cost, you know, $2 million to make, if that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. But so anyway, that's the last movie on our list is the least Irish movie on our list. It's Irish.
But I think it deserves space on it. You know, I did not know this. So, but Robert De Niro also has some Irish roots. I thought he was Italian, but he is half Italian, half Irish.
All right.
That's a revelation to me. So I did not know that. But I found this interesting, Debbie, and so would you probably. So with a lot of these mob movies, the language, they don't spare anything. And so let's talk about the F word. The count for the Irishman, we're told, is 136 times over the course of the movie.
Wow, that's a lot.
How does that compare to other Scorsese films?
That's one F-bomb every 2 minutes.
Pretty much. Okay, so that's 136 for The Irishman. For Goodfellas, the count was 300. I mean, if you just think of that one scene.
Oh. I mean.
Right. Oh, it's get worse. Casino, 422.
Wow.
But we have a winner.
There's one more than 400?
We have one that tops off at 569, a Martin Scorsese film, and that is The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
569 F-bombs throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be somebody who is an author will be of interest to you. And we mentioned something about the de-aging technology that was used in this film, and much had been said about it, since this film premiered. But I also found it fascinating what they did with just the honest to goodness physical movements of the top three actors, with De Niro, Pesci, and Pacino. They actually had to bring in a posture coach to work with them on how to conduct themselves and move as younger men. I mean, those are things that you don't think about in reverse. You think about younger actors portraying older roles, but just little things like getting up from a chair, as an older
man. Not to groan.
Well, there was an incident apparently where the director Scorsese was hesitant to ask Pacino to do another take of getting up from the chair because it was like take 62 or something. And he was scared at this point.
Remember that do you ever remember that Seinfeld when Jerry's father goes to work for Elaine's company and they're like, we'll just have the meetings late at night because he can't stay awake? He wants to go to dinner at 4.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean, that's just some little behind the scenes fun that that we normally don't think about. So yeah, and when this film premiered, it had a limited theatrical release. It also was simultaneously released on Netflix, and that is where you will still find it if you have not seen The Irishman. Make sure you take breaks, and you have a lot of.
Don't take breaks. I almost said the F word. 524. It's a fucking movie. Sit down and watch it from start to finish like a normal movie. It's not like it's Shola or something that's 19 hours long. It's a 3-hour-long movie.
I think we did take a break, an extended one. It was like we treated it like intermission, with the score playing in the middle. So yeah, but it's definitely worth your while, I have to say. All right, so that makes our list for this week. And to pair with our Irish St. Patrick's Day theme, we are presenting you with something green for our pick-me-up dessert. And seriously, you don't need a holiday to make this creamy frozen concoction. Debbie, today we're making avocado shakes. This is so much, much better than those green fast food shakes that you're going to get. I mean, we're talking only 4 ingredients, if you count ice, avocado, milk, and some sugar or condensed milk. And it's going to fill you up with that vitamin, antioxidant-rich avocado. Did you know that it does so many things? It improves digestion, lots of good healthy fats in there, heart healthy, makes you less depressed if you have a problem with your mood swings.
I'm thinking about throwing a banana in mine. Do you think you could throw a banana in there?
I'm sure you can. I've been thinking about throwing strawberry in mine, but I just love the taste of avocado.
Yeah,
I mean,
very refreshing.
Yes, in other countries, it's really considered more as a fruit than it is a vegetable like it is here. Yeah. And so it is used in a lot of desserts, especially like an ice cream flavor. And so I've just kind of translated that onto a milkshake. And it is so easy and it is so good for you. And seriously, if I can figure out how to have an endless supply of avocado every day, I would have one every day.
Here's a little fun fact. Do you know the difference between a fruit and a vegetable? A fruit has seeds. That's how you know if something's a fruit or vegetable.
You're right.
An avocado has a seed, so it's a fruit.
I can't think of a vegetable with a seed. I mean, a tomato is considered a fruit and it has seeds. Yeah, you're right. There you go. That's a good way to categorize things. Okay, so in this, what'd you say?
Not just movies we know about. I know all kinds of useless information about all kinds of topics.
Exactly. Your daily recommendation of fruit and vegetables, whether it's a fruit or vegetable.
You're like, well, I'll have to file that away. Thank you very much for that contribution.
We're just filled with all this information. And to end it all in the spirit of St. Patrick's Day, we impart to you an old Irish blessing. May good luck be with you wherever you go. and your blessings outnumber the shamrocks that grow. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Debbie.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, Trish. That was so nice.
Thank you for joining us, and we will see you all again next time. Bye.
Bye.